What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo. Today, I want to talk about a problem that the New York Giants are facing. In their secondary, former first-round pick, only a first-round pick last year, Deonte Banks. What has happened to him? That's what I want to dive into. Just go over a few things that I've seen and have an open and honest discussion about a first-round pick who is just not living up to the expectations so far this season. I mean, we're talking about a Deontay Banks who stepped into the league as a first-round pick last year. So much confidence, so much potential, a 10.0 relative athletic score, the greatest relative athletic score in the history of the NFL scouting combine. He ran a 4.3 something 40. He had strength. He had weight. He had height. He had agility, jumping ability. He had it all. And so far, it just hasn't really translated to the football field. Now, we saw glimmers of it. We saw plenty of flashes last year during his rookie season. There were some really standout performances from Deontay Banks. This year, he's had the one. He had one tremendous performance against DK Metcalf and the Seattle Seahawks. But other than that, it's been a struggle. He's been letting up a lot of receptions and, more crucially, a lot of touchdowns. So I think after studying the tape, after watching the highlights, all of that fun stuff, and taking a closer look at some of the analytics and advanced data, I think I've discovered three things that are plaguing Deontay Banks. And I want to go ahead one by one, discuss those three factors that I think are holding him back and causing him to play like, let's face it, one of the worst cover cornerbacks in the NFL right now. In terms of a CB1 on a given team, I mean, it doesn't get any more unreliable than what the Giants have right now in their secondary with Deontay Banks as their primary cornerback. Obviously, there's been effort issues. There's just been poor performances. I'm going to go ahead and try and dive into it for about 10 minutes and really just discuss all the different stats and findings that I have about Deontay Banks as we try to figure out what's gone wrong with him. But before I dive into all of that, just really quickly, this content is powered by BetUS. I want to take a look at the lines for tonight's Thursday night football games because there's a line that I really like. I think that if we're looking at this game and the points that could potentially be scored in this game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals, we can find a best bet over on BetUS. I'm going to go ahead and take the Cincinnati Bengals over 23.5 points at minus 120. I really like this deal for a couple of reasons. Number one being the Bengals offense, they could put up some points. And I understand that the Ravens defense is also really good. If you're looking at the Ravens schedule recently, I mean, they held the Broncos to 10 points, but the Browns did clear that 23.5 point line, and the Browns aren't necessarily a great team right now. Buccaneers cleared that line. Commanders narrowly missed it, and the Bengals, last time they faced them, easily cleared that line in a 41-38 shootout. And if you're looking at the Bengals, they've only missed that line 3 times this season. They've had tremendous offensive output, 41-point performance last week versus the Raiders. Now it is a Thursday night game. Sometimes those can be ugly and a little bit underscoring, but I don't think 23.5 is a mountain to climb. I like the Bengals to go over 23.5 points. I'm going to go ahead and place $10. See if we can make a little bit of cash on tonight's Thursday night football game. So make sure you guys go ahead and check out BetUS. Use code YouTube150 for 150% deposit match up to $2,000. Up to $2,000, can't speak, but yeah, go ahead and check it out, BetUS. And let's go ahead and dive right back into the discussion on Deontay Banks. Now listen, there's one notion that on this channel I have fought against for quite some time. And some of you who've been keen listeners of the show might know where I'm going with this. When Deontay Banks was drafted and throughout his rookie season, this phrase, man press cornerback, kept getting used. Deontay Banks is a perfect press man corner. He's such a prototypical man coverage cornerback. No, he's not. This is what I've been arguing against for a very long time with Deontay Banks. Deontay Banks has never been a man coverage cornerback. If you watched him at Maryland, and if you watched the film, or if you watched any film breakdowns on him and prospect profiles, whatever you read about him or watched on him, the takeaway that you should have had is that he was a cornerback with press man potential. He had the archetype and the build of a press man cornerback. Sure, those things are true. He's really fast. He's physical. He's strong. He has the makings of a press man cornerback. But has he ever played at a high level as a press man cornerback? No. During his time at Maryland, he very much played a primary zone coverage defense, a cover 3 zone to be more specific. They ran a lot of zone coverage and allowed him to press one side of the field and lock down an area. he wasn't often traveling from the left side of the field to the right side of the field in tight man coverage. In fact, if you look at the statistics, they will tell you that Deonte Banks was always weak in man coverage. I'm going to go ahead and show you the PFF stats here that I'm referring to, share my screen and discuss it in greater detail, because I do think it's pretty eye-opening for Giants fans who bought into the idea of Deonte Banks being a press man cornerback. So if you're looking at these stats, I have the key opened up. So if you want to pause and take a look at the key before we go through the stats, feel free. But this is from the 2022 season, Maryland's cornerbacks. Now, if you look at the man percentage, they played man coverage only 30% of the time, meaning that they primarily, as most teams do, played zone, but they played it at a pretty high rate of 70% of the time. Looking at his man coverage grade via Pro Football Focus, it's a 61.9. It ranks third on the team. Even though he played the third most amount of snaps, he ranked third in man coverage. He's the one that went to the NFL as a first-round pick. These other guys didn't do that, or at least haven't yet, but 61.9 man coverage grade. But what if we scroll over here to zone coverage? Look who's clearly and obviously leading the way with a 72.6 zone coverage grade. Again, that's the coverage that they played more often. He played zone coverage 55.6% of the time. That's the majority of the time that he was on the field. He let up only a 36.4% completion rate in zone coverage compared to in man coverage, a 52.6% completion rate. Now, it's absolutely true that playing man coverage is just objectively more difficult. But again, this narrative that went around last year was that he was a man press corner. He never was. He always was a zone press cornerback. So I argued Wink Martindale, playing man coverage as often as he was technically playing Deonte Banks out of position, playing to his weaknesses rather than playing to his strengths, because his strength is playing zone coverage defense. That's always been the truth for him, even during his time in college. Again, looking at these zone coverage stats, 5 forced incompletions, 3 pass breakups, 1 interception, 0 touchdowns allowed, and a 32.8 NFL quarterback rating in his zone coverage. Go over to the man coverage, a 112 NFL quarterback rating, 3 touchdowns allowed, only 3 pass breakups, 5 forced incompletions. Sure, that's a good number, but even still, just looking at it, look at the NFL quarterback rating against. It's pretty significant. So my takeaway always was last season when Deonte Banks was a rookie, his struggle stemmed from him playing man coverage. Wink Martindale running man coverage far too often, leading to lapses in his coverage abilities because he's never been good in man coverage. So let's go ahead and look at some of the stats that back that up. This is the 2023 season. These are the New York Giants now that we are looking at. And let's take a look at these coverage grades. Man coverage, once again, who is ranked near the bottom? Deonte Banks. 40.7 overall man coverage grade. He had 4 pass breakups. That's a solid number, but he let up a 110.9 quarterback rating and 3 touchdowns while in man coverage. Those are bad stats. A 62.5 completion rate. That's a bad statistic. Let's move over to zone coverage, which they only played 46% of the time last year. A very, very low rate. He had a significantly higher 61.1 coverage grade compared to 40.7. Not saying that 61.1 is where we want him to be or that that's great, but for a rookie, it's good enough, and it's definitely better than being in the 40s. He had a 46.9% completion rate in zone coverage. He had 4 forced incompletions, 2 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and 0 touchdowns allowed with an NFL passer rating of 32.2 overall. So once again, what we are seeing here is a trend that I noticed in college and noticed in his rookie season. Man coverage is a problem for Deonte Banks, always has been. He is a zone cover corner. Yes, he could still press. You can press in zone coverage. A lot of fans seem to be confused about this. You don't have to play man coverage to press. You could press and jam in zone coverage. Go look at the Legion of Boom Seattle Seahawks. This is what all their cornerbacks excelled in. Press close to the line of scrimmage, jammy zone coverage. That's what they used to run. That's the kind of scheme that Deonte Banks thrives in. Now let's fast forward to this 2024 season because this is where things get a little bit more confusing and interesting. We always like to look at trends when we're looking at football, looking at the stats, looking at them year to year. Like I said, in his college season, as I pointed out, he had a higher mark in zone coverage. And let's keep focusing in on that NFL quarterback rating of 32.8 because I do think that is an important stat to look at, right? The NFL passer rating against. 32.8 there versus in man coverage, a 112.1. His first year in the NFL, 34.2 versus, what is it, a 110.9. Now let's once again look at Deontay Banks' stats on a 3-year progression. Now we've got 3-year sample size going into this season. This season in man coverage, he has an abysmal, worst on the team, 30.6 man coverage PFF grade. And again, I know that PFF grades are not perfect. They are not the Bible. They are subjective. But looking closer to the stats, only one forced incompletion, only one pass breakup, 4 touchdowns surrendered with a 66.7 completion rate in man coverage. And like I said, let's keep focusing on that NFL passer rating against, a 149.3 rating against. That is brutal. And again, this is the 3rd season now in a row where we've seen this trend. And let's look at zone coverage. Well, what do you know? A very respectable, solid 71.2 overall coverage grade. How about this? 4 forced incompletions, 4 pass breakups, only 1 touchdown allowed, and that NFL rating, not that great still, 93.9, but markedly better than 149.3. So once again, I make this point, Deonte Banks is a zone cover corner. The New York Giants are running man coverage only 30% of the time, but the 30% of the time that they run man coverage is absolutely killing them because Deonte Banks, at this point in his career, cannot play man coverage. Zone coverage, decent stats. Pretty good, actually. If the Giants can just sit in zone coverage for the majority of the game, they can win games. He's playing zone coverage on 56.7% of his coverage snaps. The Giants, how do they fix Deonte Banks? They find a way to elevate that number and pump it up towards the high 60s. That's what you're going to have to do. That is your solution to fixing Deonte Banks. I'm telling you right now, if the New York Giants start running zone coverage at a very high rate over the second half of the season coming out of the bye week, that is going to be how they fix this second-year cornerback who is struggling to stay with anyone in man coverage. I mean, damn, his longest reception led up in zone coverage is only 18 yards. What is it in man coverage? 55, the touchdown to CeeDee Lamb, where he was on an island, one-on-one man coverage, got beat quick, and there was no one over the top to help him. And that's going to lead me into our second point that I want to discuss because, like I said, I had 3 main points that I wanted to talk about. Number 2 is confidence for Deonte Banks. You'll see why that one play ties into the confidence. The confidence with Deonte Banks was never a problem coming out of college. In fact, it's probably one of the traits that got him drafted in the first round. The kid was a shit talker. The kid was mean. He was nasty. He liked to hit people. And he looked like every single time he lined up against an elite wide receiver in college, he knew he could get the better of that elite wide receiver. He didn't always, but oftentimes he did. Against Marvin Harrison Jr. in Ohio State, some of the best performances of his collegiate career. So what's gone wrong? Last year, I saw a hell of a lot of confidence out of Deonte Banks. I think we all agree with that. No, he wasn't perfect. The stats that I pulled up just demonstrated that. He struggled in man coverage as a rookie, but I still think he had confidence. I saw him talking his shit. I saw him getting in the face of wide receivers. I saw him being chippy. I saw a cornerback that exuded confidence. You guys know that we have a friend of the channel, Brian Walker. He's a defensive backs coach who works with NFL players, and he's been training a lot of players around the league. Jabril Peppers. He's trained with Xavier McKinney, of course, who's somebody I'm about to discuss, and Darnay Holmes. Those are 3 names that we know that he's worked with quite closely. The first time we ever had Brian on this channel, he said something to us that stuck with me ever since. The first thing that he said was, you need to be the most confident player on the field to play cornerback in the NFL. A cornerback with no confidence doesn't belong in the NFL. Paraphrasing what he said, but these are about the words that he said. Confidence is everything for cornerbacks. The best cornerbacks are the ones who think they can do no wrong. These are the guys that exude all of the confidence in the world. Maybe they're even overconfident. Does Deonte Banks fit that bill this season? No. I think he fit that bill last season. I think he played with a lot of confidence. But this year, it hasn't shown up. He's looked like he lacks confidence in every single game. He looks defeated, and that's where the effort problems are coming from. He's not confident. He's giving up on plays. That's what it is. There's also another factor here that I think is affecting Deonte Banks' confidence. And guys, I like Tyler Nubin a lot. You know that. I still have the plans to do the Tyler Nubin film breakdown during the bye week is when it's coming. I'm going to look at him and discuss why he's been so great for the New York Giants. But at the same time, he hasn't been Xavier McKinney, has he? Xavier McKinney is looking like a first-team All-Pro over in Green Bay. Now, he didn't necessarily look like a first-team All-Pro when he was with the Giants, but he did look like a star because he was a star. The Giants had a star safety in Xavier McKinney, who was on the field for 100% of defensive snaps last year. And on top of that, not only snaps on the field, but how about time in the locker room? That is an important part of football that's not discussed about enough for these NFL players. When Deonte Banks, a young 22-year-old player, enters the NFL, he needs a leader to help him. The Giants have some leaders in that defense. They've got Brian Burns. They've got Dexter Lawrence. Who the hell do they have in the secondary? It was supposed to be Deonte Banks, but you know what? I don't think he was ready for that role. Maybe it's Jason Pinnock, but I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's the most vocal leader. And honestly, the confidence of all of these defensive backs have looked shaken ever since Xavier McKinney left. It is an objective fact to me, and I know it's not really a fact. It's my opinion, but it's my real strong belief that the loss of Xavier McKinney had a huge effect on Deonte Banks and his confidence and his preparation and his efforts week in and week out. Because these effort problems, I don't think they happen if Deonte Banks is still playing alongside Xavier McKinney. I think a play like that one against CeeDee Lamb where he got beat over the top and he gave up on the play, I think he knows that last year, and this is no slight on Tyler Nubin, I think he did his job on that play, but last year, that's not a touchdown because Xavier McKinney probably saves his ass and allows him to play with a little bit more confidence and take some more risks at the line of scrimmage, knowing that he's got a guy behind him who's going to make the play. Now that he doesn't have that, I don't think he feels as confident in his abilities at the line of scrimmage because he doesn't have McKinney helping him out. So I think that ties into it. But again, this was a point that I made in the offseason. The Giants locker room leaders last year were Saquon Barkley on the offensive side, and on the defensive side, it was a combo of Dexter Lawrence, Bobby Okereke, and Xavier McKinney. But Okereke doesn't really have a major effect on the secondary. Neither does Dexter Lawrence. The Giants needed that true leader in their secondary, and it was McKinney. And a lot of fans were like, McKinney's too young. Oh, he had problems. We're talking about Wink Martindale in the media. I think we all see now that Wink Martindale is a piece of shit. He's kind of just an asshole. We all know that. I think we always knew that, but now we really know that. He's taking shots at the Giants while failing at his Michigan job this week. So I think that we can exonerate Xavier McKinney for the shots that he took at Wink Martindale last year. On top of that, a lot of Giants fans love to point to his ATV accident. He's a young kid who made a mistake. It was an accident. I think we need to remember that. I don't think that has anything to do with his leadership skills. Giants fans were quick to say he's not old enough to be a true leader in the secondary. The Giants need veteran experience. That is not how it works, guys. When you're a young player in the NFL, 22, Deonte Banks, cornerback, exuding confidence, why the hell would he want some 35-year-old old fart telling him what to do in that locker room? He wants a guy that he can relate to, drink with on the weekends, be friends with, play Xbox with. That was Xavier McKinney. He lost not only one of his best players that he's ever played with in Xavier McKinney, but he lost a leader in the locker room for the entire team, and he lost a great friend. Deonte Banks' struggles, a lot of them have to do with the scheme, as I was just mentioning, but a lot of them have to do with the fact that his best friend is no longer on this team, and the Giants didn't value his best friend enough to even make him a contract offer in free agency. You think these things don't affect players in the locker room? They absolutely do. And I think this has had a severe effect on the Giants. The decision to let Xavier McKinney walk for nothing has definitely affected the Giants' locker room and secondary performance. That, to me, is why Deonte Banks' confidence has fallen off of a cliff. He's not playing alongside his mentor, leader, and friend Xavier McKinney anymore. And I think it has a very severe effect on the Giants. I don't think Deonte Banks was ready to step into that leadership role for Tyler Nubin. I don't think he was ready to be that leader for Drew Phillips. These rookies are technically out-leading and outperforming him. And I think that's where the problem is. The Giants lost a secondary leader, and it really affected Deonte Banks. Now, the last point that I do want to talk about is Deonte Banks' ball skills, because that's been a major problem. To me, his coverage, it's been pretty good oftentimes. In fact, sometimes it's even been great. But overall, generally speaking, he's had a really tough year. Now, why is that? Well, honestly, at the end of the day, it has everything to do with his ball skills, because sometimes his coverage is airtight, but the contested grabs are a problem. He doesn't get his head around in time. How do you solve that? Well, reps. Leaving him out there to die. That is the only way Deonte Banks improves his skill and gets better. The Giants, I get it. You got to discipline the guy who's not putting in the effort. But at the same time, the Giants need Deontay Banks to keep going out on the field and getting beat so that one day, eventually, he turns his head around, gets his hand on a football, tips it up for an interception, and gets his confidence back. Or he picks it off himself and gets all of his confidence back. That's the only way you fix Deontay Banks' ball skills issue. But yeah, that is a major issue because in man coverage, he's got that terrible coverage grade. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he's not forcing incompletions when the ball is in his vicinity. He fixes that. That will fix his confidence. That will fix his problems in man coverage. It's a backwards domino effect. I went from 0.1 to 2 to 3. It's 0.3 solves 0.2 solves 0.1 here. So I really like the way that I laid out this episode. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. And I got passionate. I actually really enjoyed doing this episode. If you guys enjoyed this, you like these specific player breakdowns with the stats and advanced skills, also with my hot takes in there, let me know, because this is a little bit different than the coverage that we usually do on the channel, a little different kind of content. But if you're rocking with it, drop your thoughts down below and let me know, and I'll deliver more of these. But I do think this was interesting to take a look at the 3 problems with Deontay Banks and how to solve them. Again, the loss of leadership in that locker room has hurt him. It's killed his confidence. His lack of ability to get his hands on the football has killed him. But also, the Giants definitely stunted his growth by trying them out there in man coverage over 60% of the time last year on Wink Martindale's defense. Wink Martindale was not a good defensive coordinator for the New York Giants, no matter how many turnovers they forced. It's just simply the fact. These players underperformed because of him. But Deontay Banks, again, on a down-to-down basis, by the stats and everything, he is actually playing better. It's just the plays where he's making these mistakes, they're such egregious mistakes that even when he has good plays, it's so significantly outweighed by the bad plays because the bad plays are so bad. So that's really the problem with Deontay Banks, guys. There's a few problems, like I said, laid them all out there for you, broke them down, and man, this was a lot of fun. I hope you guys liked this. Hopefully the viewership and the like count is high so that I can keep doing more episodes like this. But again, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Fireside Giants powered by BetUS. And yeah, guys, I really do hope you enjoyed this one. Again, looking for your feedback down below. But I'll go ahead and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.